Day 75, lower your expenses. Okay, this might seem really obvious. It's not. I'm going to give you several examples from my own business and maybe maybe this will enlighten you to places where you can kind of trim the fat a little bit from your business, because when you're first getting started, you need every single dollar and penny reinvested back into your business. And I get it. You're also trying to survive. You need to have enough money to live from what you're making, right? Which is also why I tell you not to quit your day job like I did. Which is why I tell you not to make a bunch of stupid purchases that you can't justify like I did. But here are some other things that you can do. So, if you live in a really big spacious place, you can downgrade. You can downgrade to have a place that makes more sense for you to run your business. You can do things like why is there a train going by? It's almost gone. You can do things like use the public library, use coffee shops, use internet cafes. All of these are places that you can answer emails at, that you can, do your purchase orders, etc. Another thing that you can do, and this isn't everybody, I'm going to tell you how this worked out for me, but do you really need a car? I'm going to say that one more time. Do you really need a car? Because yes, I get it. There are places that it is not possible to live your life, or it makes it incredibly difficult to live your life and run your business without a vehicle. However, there are also very many instances where you don't actually need that car, and the insurance, the car note, parking, tickets, all that BS is an expense, not to mention gas. That's all an expense that you don't need. And let's be honest, it's a luxury, okay? You like having the car, you like being able to jump in, but do you actually need it? Again, I told you I'd give you an example from my real business, as I try to, as much as possible. But when I moved from Southern California back to Northern California, anybody that's lived in LA knows that their public transportation sucks. And even then, it's still a lot more doable than the rest of the United States. So I literally had a car for 6 months, and the first 6 months that I moved back to San Francisco. And why? Because I was an Uber and Lyft driver, and I did the car rental program. So in other words, it was really easy for me to just continue, driving. And don't get me wrong, I was using Uber and Lyft to grow my business, as I've talked about many times, how you can have a side hustle or a side job purely with the focus and pure intent of marketing your other business. And again, I was doing that, but it had also reached the point around that 6 months where, again, it was just so easy to hop in the car, click a button, and start driving. And that was not growing my business. That was not doing anything for me. It was just comfortable. So I got rear-ended on the Bay Bridge, literally. And that's what caused me to have that moment where I was like, wow, do I actually need this car? Is this car only being a crutch that's not making my life possible, that's making running my business more difficult? Long story short, I started tracking what I was spending on things like Uber and Lyft. And I know I've used this example many times before, but there was like 1 month where I spent way too much on Ubers and Lyfts, and I should have just rented a car at that point. Guess what? That was still cheaper than owning a vehicle. So if you need a car, rent one. And I get that that's not always going to be possible, but downsize your living situation. You really don't need a separate office to do your work at least not at first. If you don't need a vehicle, get rid of it. These are 3 different ways that you can lower your expenses and use those saved money to put right back into your business.